going to have a conversation about targeting religious minorities, and we're going to be talking about Australasia, then the worst terrorist attack that's ever happened in Oceania, Australasia, was the Christchurch mosque attack, where 51 Muslims were slaughtered in their mosque.
But
so
Jonathan,
but I don't want to... let me clear that. What I'm not doing is I'm not pitting one community against the next, saying in some kind of hierarchy. I'm saying that there are deep, deep problems in our society. There is hate, and a lot of people feel a lot of hatred, and we can't always identify who these people are, and that is really, really worrying, and everyone is a potential victim.
I think we can
I just want to come back very briefly because I understand why you might see what I'm saying in that way. My concern is that I believe, when I look at the state of affairs in the West, in the democracies of the West, that there is a growing Islamist threat. There is a growing radical Islamist threat. I'm not talking about Muslims in general, because this is a very, very, very small proportion of Muslims that commit any atrocities like this. But there is a growing radicalisation of young men. There's a growing radicalisation of Muslims, I believe, and I believe that is the biggest threat to security and stability. I haven't seen Jews go out and commit atrocities like this. I haven't seen Christians in recent years go out and commit atrocities like this. And that's why I think it's really important that we do have more of a national conversation about it, because I think cowering from it or being worried about, oh no, the whole Muslim community might be offended if I say this, I believe that is contributing to this problem. It's the same way, I'll pass it over to you, Paul, it's the same way I feel that the Pakistani rape gangs got away with it for so long because we were so worried about, oh, we might offend a whole community of Pakistanis. Of course not all Pakistanis are getting involved in rape gangs, but if we don't call it what it is, I believe we are emboldening it to continue. That's my theory.
Well, yes, these attackers are Muslim. Now, we'll go to great lengths to point out that they're extreme Islamist Muslim, but ultimately they're under the Muslim banner. London Bridge, Westminster Bridge, Manchester Arena, Manchester Synagogue, today at Bondi Beach, 9/11. I could go on and on. I'd rather not go on and on, but we are either going to internationally have an honest conversation about who the culprits are and do something about it, or we're not. Because there are only two choices with this. It's very binary. I know there's a lot of nuance, but that is well below the binary matter, and that is that it's always the same people causing the majority of the atrocities, and you either stop it or we internationally, as an international society, accept that those people are going to do that.
Paul,
and we accept
the greatest victims of terrorism also Muslims in Muslim countries. You look at who ISIS targeting who was ISIS targeting in Iraq.
Yeah, you're right. Again, but it's also happening with radical Islam in Christian countries in Africa right now. That's happening across the board, and I think this is why it's important when I don't say Muslims are doing this. I say Islamists are doing this, because it is Islamist. But if it was a radical Christian group doing it, I'd be happy to call it out too. I call out any form of radical terrorism that is a form of ideological fascism with this time a theology, a religion attached to it instead of political ideology like the Nazis were. It is now a religion attached to this type of fascism. There are people in our society that have these entrenched views. Not all of them will ever go on to commit an act of terrorism, but they're happy to sit there. As I was showing at 10 o'clock tonight about gassing the Jews in public. There were 40 or more people, it looked like, calling for a gassing of Jews in the public. That terrifies me, Jonathan.
I mean, there was obviously a religious dimension to what the Nazis did, Alex.
Well, they weren't Christians. They were secular, the Nazis.
Well, yes. Well, certainly their victims were belonged to a religion, but also they happened to be the vast majority of Nazis obviously were Christian.
Yeah, but they rejected Christianity. All I'm saying, the point is that there's always something to tie extremism to, whether it's a religion or whether it's a political ideology. In this case, it happens to be a religion.
OK, but so the thing with what Paul said, so I'm absolutely in favour of asking difficult questions and having difficult conversations, and I kind of feel that we do that sometimes. I suppose one difficult question that I would ask is, once you've had this conversation about Islam that you seem to want to have, what is the end result? What is the end game in having that conversation? And
you don't know until you've had the conversation, do you?
If I can just mention, we kind of skirted around this issue for the last couple of hours about radicalisation. And a couple of people have said that that people were radicalised by the marches, and I think if you're going to make that claim, I just also think that you have to talk about what is radicalising people, what has radicalised people over the last sort of 30 years in this country and other countries, and this is not to excuse it in any way or to justify it. But if you're going to have a conversation, why are these things happening? Then you have to look at what it has happened in terms of foreign policy, in terms of government.
What do you think it is?
Well, obviously, when you had something like the Iraq War, where the imagery, the optics, and not the optics, but the reality of rich Western countries pulverising a Muslim country and hundreds of thousands of people, according to many reports, dying as a result of what a lot of people thought was an illegal war. And is now, you very, very find people in this country who support the Iraq War now, in Afghanistan as well. I'm not saying that responses to that are justified, but I'm saying that made a lot of people very angry, and it created the sense that it was rich, white, Western European and American countries bombing poor brown people, poor brown Muslims. And then, when you do have what has happened, and again, I absolutely insist on drawing a distinction between Israel and Jews and the Jewish people. But it is absolutely the case that people have been radicalised by seeing what has happened in Gaza over the last years. Again, nothing justifies attacks on civilians, and everyone has a right to safety no matter what they believe. And I believe that about right-wing Jewish people as well. So people who believe in Islamist extremism, I don't think they should be killed for their views either. But it would be completely foolish of us and, politically correct, actually, to say that there is no link between
Are you saying that Gaza radicalised these terrorists?
I'm saying I'm saying that what happened in Gaza is obviously linked to an increase in anti-Semitic attacks.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Well,
that's true. But that's certainly going to be the case. But the difficulty that people have is this, Jonathan. You're right to point out the wars. The difficulty people have is that we understand that when you go to war, you are going to get people that hate you. Absolutely true. It's not always the case after wars that population of people will turn against you or whatever. That wasn't the case with Germans. I know there was no terrorist attack with Germans here in Britain after the war, but there was with some other countries like Ireland as well. After, of course, we saw successive terrorist attacks from the Irish following, obviously, the war over there. But that doesn't mean that there's an underlying theme here about radical Islam that goes beyond those reasons. And I think it's very important we have a conversation about the elements of Islam that are radical, that do have violent nature about them, that do preach in some way or another difficult cultural problems that we don't tolerate here in the West. And I think until we have that conversation, even Muslims in this country are being doing an injustice.
Alex, it's completely possible to have that conversation. I already said that you can ask difficult questions, but I think you also have to look at the context of political history and to say that before the 1990s, Islamist extremism was not a thing in Europe, and obviously Jewish people have been attacked by far-right people and by Muslims, or obviously, in the 20th century. But that wasn't a thing. And then you had certain issues about the Mujahideen, etc., and the role of the United States in supporting certain groups. And this is a matter of political history, and that's where groups like Al Qaeda were birthed, and then ISIS.
If I had it my way, Jonathan, I would never have removed the dictators in the Middle East in the first place. I think they were holding back a torrent of radical Islamists already there, and they said
it wasn't just dictators, Alex. It was democratically elected leaders.
And sure, them too. I didn't want any of them gone. If I had it my way and I was the Prime Minister, none of them would have been out of office. They all would be still there today. I do not care. That's for those people to decide to overthrow their governments, not for us to intervene. I totally agree with you on that. I'm a realist when it comes to politics, and we always intervene when it suits us as well. And I would never want us to intervene in those areas ever again, or then have to carry some sort of guilt and then import millions of people. Again, like you've said, many of whom will be radicalised as a result of that. It was a completely stupid thing. Angela Merkel sat there. We've just intervened in all these countries. Let's let a million of them in here. They don't distinguish.
And can I just say very, very quickly,
British or America? They don't
very
care.
quickly, if multiculturalism really was working 100% and everything was integrated and working smoothly, why would there be a problem in calling out one section of society
Well,
or
that
another
would be
section
difficult,
of
wouldn't it?
society.
But listen,
It wouldn't be difficult.
We're gonna come back to this conversation. A very detailed political chat there. It's very good. It's very interesting, and I think it's good to go back in the history of this. And Jonathan's got some very good points on that. I do agree. But look, coming up, flags are flying at half-mast across Australia after that horrific terror attack on Bondi Beach. We'll bring you some inside stories next.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Just have a look at Tom Stoppard.
Yeah, this is terribly sad. It is the end of a kind of literary era. 6 decades-long career that Sir Tom had. My parents hung out with him in the 60s and 70s. They have. My mum has wonderful stories. Gorgeous man, but also a real flirt in a lovely way, in a gentlemanly way. And Mum was telling me last night about a very gorgeous little pink suit that she was wearing that he appreciated, let us say, very much. Yeah, and what a lovely man who's died at the age of 88. But yeah, I mean, not only a playwright, but also a screenwriter. He wrote the screenplay for Shakespeare in Love, which is something that...
what he won the Oscar for?
Yes, he won a Golden Globe and an Academy Award, and so many other kind of literary accolades in his career. He was really proud of his Czech heritage, wasn't he? And found out lots and lots about his Jewish roots, but also very British as well. I think he balanced that.
Basically, he became the master of the second language.
Yeah.
Because he didn't speak English until he came to Britain.
At around, I think he was age 9,
Yeah.
so it's quite late to...
So he became an absolute master of English, which wasn't his native, his real language.
And people say, you know, what should you see? What should you read? Because I think you should read Tom Stoppard as well as seeing him on the stage. And there's Travesties, and there's Jumpers, and there's Arcadia. I would recommend Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are Dead, which is so clever. And what you're saying about language there and words, that was the genius, really, of Tom Stoppard. There's one quote I wanted to read you. Be happy. If you're not even happy, what's so good about surviving? And he's so good about life and about mortality and about the fact that life is going in one direction for all of us. Same direction. Yeah. Time is the only measure. He's brilliant on that. And he's kind of very intellectual, but also really accessible.
GB News, the People's Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. I'm joined by my fantastic panel this evening, of course, Linda Jubilee and Jonathan List and Paul Cox. We've just been, of course, digging into this horror that's unfolded in Bondi Beach in Australia. Of course, it's a very difficult conversation to have. It's a very difficult conversation because, you know, at the end of the day, everyone's got an opinion on this. Everyone's got a different opinion as to why this has taken place. But let's hear from the police commissioner, obviously reporting from what's been going on over there. Let's go to that first.
We have progressed at pace overnight with that investigation, and as a result of investigations undertaken, I can say that we are not looking for a further offender. We are satisfied that there were 2 offenders involved in yesterday's incident. One is deceased, the second is in critical but stable condition in hospital at the moment. The offenders are a 50-year-old and 24-year-old male who are father and son. The 50-year-old is deceased, the 24-year-old is currently in hospital at the moment. As part of the investigation, we conducted 2 search warrants last night, one at Bonnie Rig and a second at Campsie. The 50-year-old male is a licensed firearms holder.
Yeah, some critical information. That was the last press conference we heard a couple of hours ago now. Of course, this story here. I want to bring up the front page of The Independent, if we can bring that to you in just a second. It says an act of evil here. Of course, one of the victims of this is was a British man, London-born, Eli Schlanger. He was killed, of course, at the scene. It says here, one attacker dead, another in custody, devices found in a car. This is a very broad story, Paul. Of course, they found explosives in the vehicle. We don't know what they were going to be used for, if they were going to be used. The father, the 50-year-old man, we don't have his name yet. He is a licensed gun holder. And I guess there'll be a lot of conversations now being had about the Prime Minister of Australia, whether or not they were prepared for this, whether or not when they saw things like chants to gas the Jews outside Sydney Opera House, the most iconic landmark in Australia, whether they acted quick enough, whether they investigated and thought, actually, is there something happening here to our society? Do you think there's going to be serious political ramifications to this?
No. I don't buy that police officer in the same way as I don't buy most political leaders. It's just hot air. Pull a serious face, say serious words. The idea that they're not looking for a further offender, of course they're not. These two acted alone. But let me tell you, these two will be part of a network of Muslims with extremist views that are tens, if not hundreds strong in Australia, just waiting for the next opportunity to do the same thing. I'm sure the officer is devastated. He may even be directly affected by it. I'm not saying this on a personal level. What I'm saying is I've not seen any action from anyone that can possibly do it to stop this, because as I said before, it's the same people with the same ideology, the same motive in a different location every time. Nobody stops it. Now, in order to stop it, you've got to... It's like being an alcoholic. Nobody is admitting that there's a problem.
Yeah.
They're talking around the edges. Oh, there seems to be this problem, or these people are acting alone. There's nothing else to worry about. Let me tell you, there is so much else to worry about, and we should be concentrating on that. And I want to see political leaders, I want to see law enforcement leaders telling us that, saying, we know there's a problem here and we need to do something about it. But they're terrified.
Do you think they're terrified, Linda?
Yes. I'm just going to... There's an interesting quote here in the Times, and it's from Alexander Downer, who is the former Australian Foreign Minister. And he told Times Radio that the shooting highlighted rising anti-Semitism and means the Australian government hasn't been rigorous enough, and the state governments, in cracking down on Islamic extremists of one kind or another. And that has been a theme throughout today, that this has been going on, and as Paul says, no one's been cracking down on it.
Yeah, Jonathan, to go back to this theme here, do you think politicians are scared to tackle this issue? In Britain and in the West, in many parts of the West? Well, just a pretext, perhaps. Donald Trump may be one of the only Western leaders. I think perhaps the Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orban, and Poland have also taken quite hard stances on immigration, on cultural assimilation. Donald Trump is very unapologetic at the moment in his language. It may be distasteful, but he's saying he's prioritising the safety of Americans.
Well, he and Orban are naked racists, and I don't think we should be taking
Oh, Jonathan, come on. I don't think Viktor Orban and Donald Trump are racists.
Well, you may not think that. I do. OK.
What about Denmark?
What about Denmark?
They're cracking down. Do you think that they're a racist country?
I think that a lot of... I love Denmark. I think that Denmark has a lot that can teach us in terms of...
social,
in terms of sort of social justice.
And you think their stance on immigration is fair enough?
Their stance on immigration is deeply troubling, actually.
Do you think that the Muslim attackers today are racist?
Obviously.
So how would you suggest that we approach this as a solution going forward? Because nothing we've done to this point has worked. So, Jonathan, the reason I say this, and with the greatest respect, and I really do like you, mate, the idea that we could chuck around the word racist and it put us off someone, Donald Trump's racist. If Donald Trump fixes this problem, I couldn't care whether he was racist or not.
Paul, Donald Trump is suggesting deporting hundreds of thousands of legal migrants to the United States. And in fact, talking about sort of deporting people who I think might even be US citizens. He reposted something the other day about getting rid of all people from third world countries.
Can I come back on this point? And I understand why, if you're of a political persuasion, that would be very worrying. However, there is he
talked about Somalis being garbage the other day.
He obviously. I don't necessarily agree with all of the rhetoric that Donald Trump uses. I wouldn't use it personally. I'll just make that clear. However, what I would say is that when he quotes the statistics about how many Somalis that go to America are on benefits, for example, he's making yes. Rhetoric is difficult to deal with, but he's making the case and saying, well, why would we have people here that don't actually contribute? And that's the same national conversation we're trying to have here in Britain. And I think the problem with what you're saying when you call people racist is that you lose your power immediately to criticise.
Well, I think
I'm telling you
Alex,
that hang on, bear with me, because I'm telling you that out of respect, because I think if you want to make a strong political argument, the word racism has lost its meaning.
Well, I will actually contend with you the word racism has all of its meaning, because in this country it is much, much worse to be called a racist than to be a racist.
But that's how it's been.
There are people who will sue you for calling them racist.
Sure.
Who have said things that are absolutely racist, because that is a cancelable thing in this country. It's called cancel culture. There are people. There are people who have been cancelled for calling certain politicians racist.
Yeah, that's very true. But listen, let's first of all have a look, because we're talking about Donald Trump there. Let's go and hear what he had to say about this matter.
It was a rough day, but to Australia and the Prime Minister, to everybody that we know so well, we get along with so well, we have a great relationship. That's a terrible situation going on over there. Think of that.
Trump's words there, Linda, quite reserved, actually. He has been attacking a lot lately. He didn't come out with very strong rhetoric. But, these matters now are, I guess, becoming more internationalised in the sense that they affect the democratic countries of the West, of which, he is the leader of.
Well, Islamists have called it global jihad. It's global.
Globalised the intifada.
Yeah, globalised intifada. What more can he say? There is no country that is safe from this. And it is absolutely obvious that the perpetrators will do this in any country, in any part of the world that they choose to target.
I think that, I don't personally... Can I just come back on that?
Very briefly.
I don't personally support the slogan globalised intifada, because I think it can be widely misunderstood. But I think that a lot of people who use that slogan would say, in their defence, they're not saying attack Jewish people. They're saying that there has to be, if there's a struggle with the Palestinian people, that has to be a global struggle.
I disagree. I'm
saying that's what they are saying.
But I guess that would be the same as Trump calling a certain group of people garbage. But I would say that I find very offensive when people want to globalise an act of terrorism. That's
intifada.
It's globalisation. But the word intifada with globalise, what does that mean?
Well, I'm saying I don't use that slogan myself. I think it's problematic, but that is what they say in their defence.
Well, that's what they say, but it actually is that a guise. That's my opinion. It's a guise.
That's your opinion. You're entitled to it.
Yeah. Very briefly, Paul.
This is some sort of psychosis. It's like I'm living a fever dream here. The idea that globalise the intifada is not racist is for the birds. And if people are confused about that, well, they just need to read a lot, I would say. We discussed earlier about whether the people that have gone on the marches in Westminster in particular, pro-Palestine marches I'm talking about, have been radicalised in some way. I don't know if they have or haven't. What I do know is it's totally legitimised everything that we're seeing going on, including what's gone on at Bondi Beach today.
Yes.
I tell you why, because that type of march and that type of ideology is well protected by the people that are coming out today and saying we're going to do something about it. We've got the very people that are supporting and enabling what's gone on, telling us they're the people that are going to do something about it. Look, I think that young people have been ideologically captured by what's gone on with Israel and Palestine. And most of them have absolutely no idea of the history. They just focus on minute, nuanced detail and what the right people that they will listen to have told them.
OK.
It has led to this. Calling people racist has led to this.
All right.
That is a
well, listen, we're going to have to leave it there. But coming up, Ben Leo will be joining us live from Washington, D.C. There's a lot of updates also on what's been going on in America. We're looking forward to speaking to Ben. That's next.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun. Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello there. We will see some sunshine across eastern parts of Italy into Greece through the next 24 hours, but very unsettled across the western parts of the Mediterranean. Storm Amelia bringing outbreaks of rain across Madeira into parts of Spain and Portugal. Some heavy rain, strong winds too, but dry interlude into parts of Italy and Greece, but temperatures around 15, 16 Celsius. A few showers towards Turkey as well. Over the next few days, it remains unsettled, particularly across the west, sunnier in the east.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello there, good evening. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. The wet conditions we've seen across northwestern areas of the UK this weekend will be pushing their way a touch further southeastwards as we head into the new week. It's this trailing weather front that's been providing the unsettled conditions with repeated pulses and outbreaks of quite heavy rainfall, and there are several rain warnings still in force as we head throughout the night, with those heavy outbreaks still likely to providing some disruption and flooding at times. Generally, the far southeast staying dry during tonight, but it is going to stay rather cloudy, and underneath that cloud fairly mild. Overnight lows of only 9 or 10 Celsius, but a touch cooler to start off the day for Scotland and Northern Ireland, where we see that rain eventually clearing its way through, but temperatures here likely dropping into low single figures, maybe even closer towards freezing in some very sheltered rural spots. There will be a few showers just to watch out for across the far northwest, but generally it's a much better day to come for Northern Ireland and Scotland, those outbreaks of perhaps hazy sunshine poking their way through. But we do have amber rain warnings in force throughout Monday for Cumbria, but also parts of southern Wales, where that rain could still linger for a time, waving in places, so it could push its way back up into parts of Cumbria later on in the day. So again, with the saturated ground that we've got around of late, further flooding and disruption is possible, so take care when you are travelling. Again, the far southeast managing to stay dry throughout the day tomorrow, but again, rather breezy and cloudy. Temperatures here 11, 12 degrees Celsius, but that fresher air into the northwest, seeing temperatures here around 8 degrees Celsius. Our front will slowly push its way southeastwards into Tuesday. I wouldn't take these graphics too literally. There's just some uncertainty in regards to exactly how quickly it could break up or clear. Do cater potentially for some heavy pulses of rain during the day across the southeast on Tuesday. But we've got more wet and windy weather arriving into the northwest as we head later on into next week. So do stay tuned to the forecast. Bye-bye.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Alex Armstrong Tonight's late edition. It's being reported by The Telegraph this evening that the Sydney terror attack may have been carried out by an Iranian-backed foreign terror cell, Israeli authorities believe. And we're going to speak about this very shortly. But first, let's cross live to Washington, D.C., because joining me now ahead of The Late Show Live is GB News' Ben Leo. Ben, what's coming up on your show? Is there any update on the massacre that also happened in America at Brown University, the mass shooting?
Yeah, good evening, Alex, viewers and listeners. Small update on that last night. Of course, we did 2 hours on that last night on the university shooting at Brown in Rhode Island. I went home, I went to sleep, and then I woke up to the Sydney attack, and I just thought, goodness me, It never ends, does it? With reference to the Brown University shooting, 2 died, unfortunately, in that shooting yesterday. 8 others were critical in hospital. Authorities have arrested a man. It's a guy called Benjamin Erickson. He's from Wisconsin. He's 24, and the suggestion is he has a very deep background of mental health issues, which to me, I mean, with all these mass shootings, to me, if you murder somebody in cold blood and you go on a shooting spree, I think by default you have something wrong upstairs anyway. But that's the update on the Brown University. Just talking about the Telegraph piece you just mentioned, Alex, it's an interesting story there saying that, well, it's Israel suggesting that Iran is behind the Bondi Beach attack. But it brings me on to something I'd like to talk about tonight on The Late Show Live, which is Suella Braverman. I think we can all safely say now she was right, wasn't she? The Suella Braverman completely correct in her article a couple of years ago, which eventually got her sacked or she resigned, I can't remember, basically saying the Palestine marches, the pro-Palestine marches, are hate marches and they should be banned. So Suella was right, let's say that. Second of all, with Iran, we have a very serious problem with Iran in the UK. It was only a few months ago this year that we had the 3 guys from Iran who were arrested on the way to the Israeli embassy in Kensington, planning to blow it up. I think they're still going through the courts now. There was a separate Iranian terror case as well where counter-terror arrested people. And a story that I ran on my show earlier this year in the UK, there's even a guy who used to be in the Iranian government. He backed the fatwa on Salman Rushdie, and he was a big fan of the Revolutionary Guards leader, Soleimani. He even held a vigil for him, this guy. Anyway, he lives in North London now, and he bought his council house a few years ago from the council in, I think it's Barnet. I've been to the house before. I think it's in Barnet. So we've got all these people. Oh, and by the way, another guy in North London is a former Hamas fugitive who used to run Hamas's terror operations on the West Bank. So, and I'm sure there's many more. Many, many more. And one of these guys I've just mentioned, they were involved in the organising of these pro-Palestine rallies. So we've got a problem in the West, not just in the UK, not just in Australia, not just in America. There is a problem with particularly Iran and particularly with an operation against Jews as well. They want Jews eradicated from the map. So I think the United Kingdom, all these Western countries, we need to start asking ourselves, are we doing enough to tackle Iran and the Iran problem? Because if we've got former Iranian politicians and government ministers living in North London buying their council houses who idolise Soleimani and put out fatwas on Salman Rushdie, I think that's an issue.
Yeah, I certainly agree. There is, and obviously a lot of this comes from the small boat crisis, in my opinion, Ben. Of course, porous borders mean we are going to be subject to foreign state enemies who are very willing to enter our country and take advantage of that. I can attest that it's not all Iranians, of course. I have Iranians in my family, very, very good people who love the West and actually don't want us to turn into what's happened in Iran. So this is a very interesting distinction between in the Iranian community. So many of them are so westernised. Of course, they lived under a time when women were free to wear whatever they wanted, to go to the best parties and drink alcohol and do whatever they liked. And of course, their country was hijacked by extreme Islamists who've now been running that country for the best part of, what, 40 years or so, Ben. And on Suella Braverman, I think she was right. I said it then. I said I think Suella Braverman is right. I think there's even probably can go back. You can probably find one of my pieces to camera on it as well, Ben. I was saying at the time that I think that Rishi Sunak was making a terrible mistake removing her as Home Secretary, and perhaps maybe we would have someone with a bit of a backbone to get on top of it, Ben.
Yeah. Well, I think most certainly she was right. It's not controversial to say that. And just with regards to the Iranians, loads of Iranians have crossed the channel in small boats over recent years, lots of them, and I can't reveal too much, but I know for a fact that at least one of them, and one is enough, one of them has been involved in counter-terror operations. They've been basically pinched by counter-terror teams before they were able to carry out an attack. So one is enough, one terrorist is enough, one rapist is enough. The small boats crisis, if you want to call it that, is an imminent threat to Great Britain. It should be classed as a national emergency. Why it hasn't by now, I don't know.
Well, look, Ben, thank you so much. Looking forward to your show tonight. Hopefully we'll hear some more about, of course, what's going on with the Brown University, so I know people are really interested in that. Thank you very much, Ben. Looking forward to The Late Show Live. Coming up next, well, I'm going to ask this panel, do they think Suella Braverman was right? And, of course, we'll also be going to that report in The Telegraph this evening. The Sydney terror attack may have been carried out by an Iranian-backed foreign terror cell, according to Israeli authorities. Stay with us.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back, everybody. I want to start. We've got some interesting news reported by the Telegraph this evening, but I'm going to start on a story I promised we would talk about, which was following up what Ben Leo was talking about on the Late Show Live. He'll be talking about this, I'm sure, tonight. I just want to ask the panel, if you remember, Suella Braverman was Home Secretary back in 2023, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, of course. And at the time, this is when these marches started. Of course, it was post-October 7th. Suella Braverman posted an article in The Times, and in the article she accused the Metropolitan Police of showing double standards of handling protests. Her remarks, I'm quoting this, I think, verbatim, but I don't want to hold myself accountable for that. So I believe she said, the Labour-run Met Police have been spinelessly policing hate marches through London by supporters of prescribed terrorist groups like Hamas, while simultaneously cracking down on peaceful patriotic protests by those who love our country.
Well, demonstrably true. The way that they're policed is evidence of that. Because you will see riot police at any march for Great Britain, United Kingdom-based interests. You will not see the same thing at the pro-Palestine marches, and they will be much more sensitive to the way they talk about it, the way they act about it, what they do around the issues. If this is something organised by, let's say, Tommy Robinson or something in central London, the police will turn up in force, and the rhetoric around it will be from day one to the day after that this is far right, and these people are trouble, and they have nothing to say of note.
Yeah, I actually went to not the one this weekend, but the one before that, the United Kingdom rally, to interview just ordinary people Ordinary people that are going and asking them why they were there. And you said people from all backgrounds were going there. And none of them were far-right thugs. That's what I couldn't understand about this narrative. The week after that, we saw what Suella Braverman would call hate marches in the street, where 40 people were arrested for attacking police or so. And there's complete crickets from the front bench, crickets from Sadiq Khan, who was a week ago, before that, criticising the so-called far right.
So I'm going to be a little bit controversial here, because I think you've made a good observation there, and much of which I agree with. However, I think it is wholly inappropriate for the Home Secretary to be making those comments in a national newspaper in this country. I think it's all very well for her to go to meetings and make those points very, very strongly, but I don't think she should be making them in the public. Just like she shouldn't be saying things like, it's my dream to see a plane take off laden with failed asylum seekers or asylum seekers who want to process. In my dreams, I see that plane. Just because, in communications terms, it's just a little bit immature.
Jonathan, do you agree with that?
Which bit?
You tell me.
All of it?
Do you agree with what Linda
I
just said?
rarely agree with anything that you say.
No, I was about Linda, what Linda just said.
I certainly agree with you that she shouldn't have said that stuff in public. I think she was a woeful Home Secretary, and the only good thing Liz Truss ever did was get rid of her. Unfortunately, she came back about 7 days later because of Rishi Sunak and that disastrous 2 years of whatever that was. So, look, Suella Braverman was completely wrong on this, as with everything else that she's ever said.
But what's the difference between Suella Braverman saying stuff like that
I didn't say she was wrong.
The Home Secretary and the Home Secretary calling people far-right thugs, or whoever it was, calling people far-right thugs, and then not condemning the far-left thugs who got arrested for attacking police? What's the difference? In my opinion,
you should attack anyone who attacks. Obviously,
my
no one should be
opinion
attacking
is
the
that
police.
at least Suella Braverman's honest, and you know where you stand with her. Where these other lot, they tell you one thing and they do the other, and then they inflame tensions anyway.
You know where you stand with Suella Braverman. That's not a good thing.
No, I do. I think she was right. I think everything she said was right.
Fine. When she said that we should ban the marches, that is the most anti-democratic thing I've ever heard. Either you believe in the right to protest or you don't.
All right.
Now, those protests should be policed, hateful slogans should be stopped, etc. Although, obviously, we don't believe in arresting people for slogans, because those are hurty words, and you shouldn't be arrested for hurty words, as we always hear on this channel.
Well, listen, I want to get onto this Telegraph story, because they reported this evening that the Sydney terror attack may have been carried out by an Iranian-backed foreign terror cell, Israeli authorities believe. Officials cited Iran as a primary suspect and said possible links to groups including Hezbollah, Hamas and Pakistan-based Lashkar-e-Taiba, I think I'm saying that correctly, were also being investigated, according to Israeli media reports. Australian officials have not publicly confirmed any foreign involvement in the atrocity. Paul, what do you make of this, briefly, if you may?
Well, there's a lot of geopolitics at play here that I think muddies the waters somewhat. Now, you could probably link this back to Iran or any major Islamic power. Pakistan. We know the guy trained in Pakistan. We see images of him today, videos of him today, firing guns in Pakistan. He is from Pakistan. I don't know if he's part of some group that's in Iran or Pakistan, but I'll tell you what, they're all part of the same gang. So it doesn't matter what country it is.
Pictures of Bondi here this morning. Linda, what do you make of this potential involvement of Iran that Israeli authorities are reporting? Of course, you know, many people will argue that Iran, of course, is the leader or the state that leads
in that region.
Yes,
that's the main perpetrator.
Yes.
So, and Hezbollah is linked to Hamas. We know that, and Hamas, which is what the Israelis wanted to drive out of Gaza. So I think that certainly there will be a link there somewhere. Certainly from a funding point of view, I think Australia should be very worried about Hezbollah-attached organisations sending money to fund groups, networks in Australia. I think they should be looking at that very, very closely.
Jonathan?
Well, I will refrain from comment until there's more evidence about the linking of foreign governments to this. I do know that Israel says a lot of things that subsequently turn out not to be entirely true.
Just on the point then, more specifically, where we've identified issues here in Britain, for example, where we have, the police have made arrests, do you think there is a concern that internationally Iran are becoming more and more emboldened to send people out to commit atrocities on our soil?
Again, I'm no defender of the Iranian government, but I would need to see more balanced evidence from sources that I respect before I can sort of.
But on British terms, I mean, even the BBC might have reported on.
I think it's quite possible that Iran is involved in foreign acts of espionage and destabilisation, as many actors are, and of course we should be working against that.
Yeah. Which is what Israel said.
I think that Israel was linking. I think that Israel was linking it to this attack, and I don't have the evidence for that.
Right, so Jonathan, Linda, Paul, thank you very much. I know it's been a difficult discussion to have this evening because people have lost their lives and this is a very heated political environment as well. But thank you all for joining me. Up next is The Late Show Live. It's hosted by the one and only Ben Leo. Ben will be taking it over here from me.
Alex, thank you very much. Yes, tonight on The Late Show Live, of course, we'll be going live to Sydney to get the latest on the Bondi situation and indeed delving deeper into that conversation about Iran. Iran, of course, have been blamed by Australian intelligence for the Melbourne synagogue attack last year, which was firebombed, and of course, Iranian terrorists, ex-terrorists living in London as well. So more of that just after the break. See you in a sec.
It's the greatest cash prize of the Great British Giveaway so far. A simply stunning £85,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like, making 2026 your greatest year to date. That could get you that brand new car, extend and improve your home, take you away on that bucket list holiday, or just give you some peace of mind over the coming months. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show. It's not a bad brand. Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight on the
unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
A really important thing about GB News, and it's brought something completely different to the landscape.
The mainstream is all about keeping the status quo as it is, ticking along quite nicely. They don't want to ask difficult questions.
GB News exists because there is a desperate need for fearless journalism that puts the people first.
GB News came on the scene as a disruptor, and it has always been a disruptor ever since.
Journalism in this country has been a cosy world full of groupthink until now.
Well, the reality is that most British journalists are afraid. That's not GB News.
Journalism is journalism at the end of the day, and we're not here to serve any masters. Our masters are our audience.
minutes.
We're here to talk about things in a way that have never been broadcast on British Airways before.
Do not miss a moment on GB News.
The #1 news channel in the country.
Welcome back to GB News. Coming up next, it's the Late Show Live with Ben Leo, live in Washington, D.C. Ben, what's coming up in the show, mate?
Alex, viewers and listeners will be pleased to know I found the American version of Jonathan Liss in the studio tonight, so we're going to have some fun with that. I'm only joking, Of course, we've got more in-depth coverage of the Bondi terror attack, 16 dead. We're going live on the ground in Sydney, and an update on the Brown terror attack as well. I spent 2 hours last night on the show covering the shooting, 2 dead at Brown University in Rhode Island, 9 injured. I went to sleep, I woke up, and then this happened as well. So it's been a bit of a weekend, and also I've got a great front page to show you from the Australian version of the Daily Telegraph. Hang tight for 2 minutes and I'll show you. Let's do this. It's the Late Show Live. Good morning. Welcome along to the Late Show Live. Coming up tonight.
I'm very sad duty this morning to report that 16 people have been confirmed as being killed, 15 innocent people and 1 perpetrator. There were 42 people in New South Wales hospitals overnight, and the victims' age ranges are from as young as 10 to 87.
Yeah, we all know by now, of course, terror in Australia. Among the dead is a 10-year-old girl.
The offenders are a 50-year-old and 24-year-old male who are father and son.
A father and son are the offenders. The father is dead, the son is still alive. There's also this incredible moment when a brave man tackled one of the gunmen to the ground, and you have to say it could have been so much worse.
There were 2 improvised explosive devices found at the scene. They were taken by our rescue and bomb disposal unit. They were found to be active.
2 improvised devices were found but were not activated. Luckily, we'll cross live to Sydney on the ground for all the latest updates, including the big question tonight, and I'm sure it will roll on into tomorrow. Were the Iranians behind it? Because Australia is looking into a potential leak to the attack. Meanwhile, in America, a drive-by gunman unloads on a house in California after it was decorated for the Jewish festival of Hanukkah. Is anywhere safe now for Jewish people? We'll also get the latest updates on the Brown University shooting here in America. A man in his 20s has been arrested and his name has been released to the press. That was after 2 people were killed and 9 injured. I'm Ben Leo. This is The Late Show Live. Good morning, hope you're well, thanks for your company. The world is once again in a state of shock after yet another terror attack on Jewish people. This time, we all know the details. The scene was the world-famous Bondi Beach on a warm Sunday morning in Sydney, Australia. 2 gunmen opened fire in a well-known Jewish community area. 16 are dead. Among them, tragically, a 10-year-old girl. Here's what one eyewitness saw.
I just heard what sounded like fireworks going off, and it was multiple going off. So I sort of opened the blinds to see what was going on, and I just saw an older lady get shot, and she was on the floor. Saw an older guy get shot, very badly injured on the left-hand side, and I just saw a bunch of people screaming, running towards me. I didn't know what was going on.
It's kind of like, I don't know, fish in a barrel. Like, the guy had I think of what I've been told, he had an automatic rifle, big gun, standing on the bridge, and just target practice.
We've also heard this evening from Australia's Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese. This is what he said just moments ago.
What we saw yesterday was an act of pure evil, an act of anti-Semitism, an act of terrorism on our shores in an iconic Australian location, Bondi Beach, that is associated with joy, associated with families gathering, associated with celebrations. Today, all Australians wrap our arms around them and say, we stand with you. We will do whatever is necessary to stamp out anti-Semitism
Police tonight have said that the offenders are a father and son duo. So instead of taking your son to a football match or maybe going to a barbecue or, bonding over sport, they instead embark on a mass terror attack. The father is among the dead. And it could have been so much worse because police say they found 2 improvised bombs at the scene. Luckily, they weren't activated. And of course, this attack happened on a holy day, the beginning of Hanukkah, because that's what evil people do, isn't it? They target religious festivals, they target the vulnerable, they target children. A reminder, a 10-year-old girl has died in this attack. There was, however, a moment of true heroism when one of the gunmen was tackled by a man. You can see it on your screen now, and I'm sure you've been seeing it all day, but this will never get old, this footage. Meanwhile, in the UK, Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, said police are increasing their visibility in Jewish communities. And in America, a Jewish house was shot at in California. I think around 20 rounds were discharged from a car speeding by after the house was decorated for Hanukkah. Here's a clip of the driver opening fire at the home and then shouting, "F the Jews." Australian newspapers have been published in the past hour or so. This is the Australian version of the Daily Telegraph tomorrow. It says, it's been blurred out on screen, but I'm going to read it. It says, "You bastards, at least 11 dead in terror attack on Jews in Bondi." And my love and affiliation for the Aussies will never flail, especially in light of what happened yesterday in Sydney. And front pages like this, do you know what it does? It makes me admire the Aussies even more. The resilience, the attitude, the commitment never to back down. With me now is Liam Mendes, a reporter at the Australian newspaper who was at the scene in Bondi. Liam, good evening. Thanks for your company. Really appreciate it. First of all, condolences to you and everybody else down under. My love extends to you at this time. What a front page from probably your rival newspaper, actually, the Daily Telegraph. "You bastards." That says it all.
That's exactly it. You bastards. That's right. The Telegraph just put it out there bluntly. This is a massacre against Jews in Australia. It's horrific, and it needs to be called out as exactly that. And at the moment we've got 16 people who have died here. That number is sadly expected to rise. There are over 40 people that are injured, still in hospital, some of them incredibly critical. Just to paint a picture of how, close to home this is for everyone. Everyone knows someone that's been very closely impacted by this. I've got a friend who was shot. Thankfully, he's fine. But everyone has been incredibly touched by this, and it's just since October 7, we have seen in Australia this rise in issues surrounding anti-Semitism within Australia, and here we are.
Well, yeah, you were right. You had was it the Melbourne synagogue attack last year, which I think your intelligence services down under said was linked to Iran. I think there was a separate attack on a kosher grocery shop perhaps as well. And today, in the English version of the Daily Telegraph, Liam, it said that Israel is blaming, or at least suspecting, Tehran is involved in what happened at Bondi. If you can just explain to me, please, Liam, how you're, from a human perspective, from just an everyday Aussie, what was your day like? When did you wake up? How did you find out what was happening? And tell us about your mate as well, who was shot. How is he? What's he told you? Where was he shot?
Yes, so I went to the beach yesterday, a beach called Redleaf. It's a harbour beach. It's 10-15 minutes away from Bondi. I had friends. I saw them on Find My Friends. They were near Bondi. But this was any normal Saturday. It was Sunday. It was a beautiful day, 30 degrees, sunny. Everyone was at the beach. Everyone was outside having a wonderful, wonderful time. I went home. I hadn't even had a shower yet, and I get a message from someone that says, who said, you know, shooting in Bondi, and I jumped straight in the car and headed there to report. And as you can see in the drone footage there, I mean, the scene is just horrific. There's, you know, this is a terror attack that has been captured from every single angle, including the ground, whilst you know, the assailants were still you know, firing at people. Sorry, captured from the air on a drone. I mean, we have never seen footage like this before, and you know, this has just happened like that. I'm out the front of their home. It's still heavily occupied by police. But last night I was also here up until around 2 a.m. when police were raiding this this home. They set a very, very large cordon, a huge perimeter. It was very difficult for us to actually see what was happening, but we were able to see, we obtained some footage of people being led out, 3 individuals, 2 women, 1 man being led out with their hands up. Heavily armed police were there. They had their weapons ready. They had armoured vehicles there with them. These people were removed. I saw one of the men was handcuffed. His hands were behind his back. He was led away. I understand that those individuals have now been released. But, you know, this is an ongoing situation, and it's such a horrible, you know, it's a horrible time for not just Australia, but the entire world.
Yeah, indeed. This is an attack on Australia, of course, but it does feel like an attack on the West, an attack on our way of life and our culture. You're right, Liam. Just finally, do you know much about the 10-year-old girl? Do you know who she is, what the circumstances of her death? I mean, any death is tragic, but I don't know. I speak as a parent. I cannot imagine losing a child in that way.
I mean, that's it. I mean, these are so many young families. Just to paint a picture of what was happening, this was a Hanukkah celebrations, you know, people, it's as simple as lighting a candle. That's the extent of what was happening here. Young families. Bondi is the eastern suburbs of Sydney. It's an area of Sydney that is heavily populated by people of the Jewish faith, but not just the Jewish faith, all faiths, and that's it. It's, you know, families, young families going out, enjoying their evenings. That's all they were doing there. It's as simple as that.
Liam, sorry to be talking with you and meeting you for the first time under these circumstances. As I said, I love your country. I think you guys are great. Sending my love to everybody down under, and you know, may the fight back begin. I think they picked on the wrong people, Liam. Thanks very much for your time. Liam Mendez, reporter at The Australian. Right, gbnews.com/your say. Let me know what you think about that Daily Telegraph front page. I won't say it again, I've said it twice now, but UB words. I just think it's great. I love it. With me now is Michael Rowe, chairman of the Young Jewish Assembly. Michael, good evening. Thanks for joining the show. How are you feeling tonight? Because we've seen not just this situation in Bondi, this is a litany, this is the latest in a litany of attacks on Jewish people in Australia. As I just mentioned to Liam, you had the Melbourne's synagogue attack, an attack on a kosher grocery store. In Manchester in England, we had the stabbings by a guy called Jihadi. He was literally called Jihadi, like it's some episode of, I don't know, Brass Eye or something. How are you feeling tonight?
Good morning. I mean, we are absolutely shocked and disgraced by what has gone on today. But as you just listed there, Ben, there is constant attacks on the Jewish community, murderous attacks, and unfortunately these attacks are only getting more frequent and more deadly. And we are absolutely now calling for action to take place to stop this ever happening again. I seem to come on GB News and other news outlets. We're writing articles, we're talking to people about so many different attacks taking place. We have the warm words afterwards. We have the politicians putting out the statements. We have the increased police presence, which of course we're very grateful for. And this happens across the world. And then things die down for a short period of time. And then we find ourselves, unfortunately, a few days or a few weeks later in the same place. And this just cannot keep continuing to happen. As you say there, just in Manchester, the last major Jewish festival, we saw a deadly attack with murderers on the streets of Britain. We've now seen that on a beach in Australia. What is going to come next? When is the world and the West going to wake up and start saying we have to tackle the root causes of anti-Semitism? Otherwise, unfortunately, we're never going to get to the bottom of this, and these attacks are going to keep happening. It's beggars belief that really nothing has happened to this state. To this date. I mean, I'll just give you an example, a UK example. Yesterday, on the streets of our second city in Birmingham, we saw protesters apparently protesting for the cause of Palestine. We saw banners there with Hamas, terrorist organisation, symbols on the streets of our second city. Police did nothing to combat it. We haven't seen a robust response. We haven't seen politicians calling it out. And these things only embolden the terrorists, only embolden the haters, and lead to murders like we've seen, terrible murders that we've seen today in Australia. So we are calling for action. We need something to change, and we need to change fast, because quite frankly, we can't allow this to keep happening.
Yeah, and it happens here in the United States, Michael. I was at the second anniversary of the October the 7th attacks in New York in October, and there were people there, the videos online, it went viral, people waving Hezbollah and Hamas flags and calling for the destruction of Israel as a state. Not even, it wasn't about Palestine, it was about, or even the war in Gaza and the civilians and the children dying, it was about the eradication of the Israeli state. So just tell me, Michael, before I let you go, what does need to be done? You say this can't happen again. I think we know it will happen again, unfortunately, but what does need to be done practically?
Well, first of all, we need to say stopping the hate marches across the world, stopping the emboldening of terrorism, which is taking place on the streets of Britain and across Europe. We need to start saying Jews need to be treated just like any other group in society. They need to be properly protected. We need to do what any right-thinking member of society would want us to do, which is stamp out terrorist supporters, which is stop the hate marches, which is enforce regulations to say that if someone is displaying hate on the streets of Britain, they will no longer be allowed to do that. They will face the full force of the law. As I say to you, politicians put out lovely statements after these terrible attacks happened. We saw today, it took the Australian Prime Minister quite a while to even acknowledge the fact it was an attack on Jewish communities. And we see that there's always excuses for these things. As you say, anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism, and people try and make out like these are two different things. The fact is these things are happening because of a hatred of Jews, because of an age-old hatred of Jews, of anti-Semitism. And there's only one way to stop it, and that's being tough on the people who are displaying this hate. Most right-thinking people in society, of course, completely condone what happens. And I think the majority, or I know the majority of people across the world, across Western nations, would say that if someone is displaying support for terrorist organizations, if someone is showing violence, someone has a history of violence, then it's up to the police to take firm action against them. We're being too soft on terrorism. We're being too soft on people displaying hate. And it's time to start taking really firm action to stop that. I'll just say that, obviously, this attack took place on the first night of Hanukkah, which is the Jewish festival of light. It's a time when we say that we are here to spread light across the world, to make the world a better place. That's what we are trying to do. It's those who are trying to do the opposite, to spread hate and to spread darkness, who are perpetrating these attacks. And we have to say now is the time to stop them, to not embolden them, to really take firm action to prevent this ever happening again. And I hope that we can see that action from the police and politicians.
Michael, thank you so much for joining the show. Appreciate your company. Michael Rowe, Chairman of Young Jewish Assembly. Stay safe is all I can say, Michael. Unfortunately, that's the fact of the reality. Joining me in Washington, D.C. is my panel tonight, Democrat strategist Joel Rubin and the Daily Mail's US political reporter Victoria Churchill. Good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome along.
Good to see you, Ben.
Victoria, I said earlier online, I said we're not just dealing with Islamists, nutjob Islamists, who find solace and martyrdom in killing infidels. We're also dealing with sort of white guilt simpletons, do-gooders really, who go along with these Palestine marches and they hold signs such as Globalise the Intifada and River to the Sea and so on. And I don't think really they know what they're doing, but they embolden the likes of Iran and these terror groups to go and do what they do. So do you agree with me? We're not just dealing with nutjob Islamists, we're also dealing with a wave, a societal disease of people who don't understand much about geopolitics, but are proving themselves very useful idiots indeed.
Well, I do think that the apologists for radical Islam and radical Islamic terror are really the people that embolden individuals like this. I mean, for example, you look at, just across Twitter, right? You have people that went from having Ukraine flags in their bios to having, watermelons and Palestine flags in their bios, which means that they are making themselves out to be geopolitical experts, really on the flip of a coin with whatever today's hot topic may be. Now, I do think that even on the American right, we have quite a big anti-Semitism problem. I think it used to be relegated to fringe areas on the right, and I think now some individuals that are getting millions and millions of views on videos they post that want to blame Jews and Israel for every single problem that is a problem not only in America and across the world. I think they really stoke the flames of anti-Semitism, particularly here domestically, and so I think there's plenty of people on the left that do it, but I think on the right we need to do a better job of calling it out, particularly here in America.
Yeah, but I guess Joel, my point is, I know exactly who you're talking about on the right, all these weirdos who go after clicks, the likes of Nick Fuentes, so on and so on. But particularly in the UK, I'm talking about these kind of middle-aged, white guilt people. Maybe most of them, they're retired. A lot of them are sort of trust fund kids, and they go on these Palestine marches, and they just, again, the only way to describe them is just useful idiots.
Well, Ben, I can't say I'm dispassionate about this topic. I'm an American Jew. I've worked for years in Jewish politics as well as Democratic politics, and I have been furious with those people for the last couple of years since October 7th. They have not been advocating for peace. They've not been advocating for understanding or working with Jewish communities. They've been advocating resentment and hostility and intimidation towards the Jewish community. And so what we see now, what's spreading here in the United States and elsewhere, is an intimidation campaign, not just about killing Jews and anti-Semitism, as we're discussing, but also an attempt to put Jews, American Jews in this case, and Australians as well, on our back foot to lose support for Israel. That's part of the big intimidation campaign, and it's disgusting.
Yeah, there's lots to talk about with this, including the Telegraph's line tomorrow, which is that Israel is basically linking Tehran to what happened in Sydney. Not a surprise, to be honest. Let me just ask you a very quick question before we go to a break. What would President Trump do? How would this administration react if this had happened in America yesterday and not Bondi Beach?
Well, he would have immediately come out strong and hard, and he would have had the police on the ground, and he would be speaking out aggressively against the language that incites this hatred.
Okay. Right, next on The Late Show Live, we'll be crossing live to Australia, and I'll be speaking to a huge name in journalism over there. Can't wait to speak to him. And let us know in the time for the time being, gbnews.com/you'll say what you think of this sorry mess. I woke up this morning, I felt helpless. I just felt totally helpless. I had no motivation. I just, it's another one, just another one. Back in a tick.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
Because you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to The Late Show Live with me, Ben Leo. I just want to bring you the front pages from Australia tomorrow. I know we normally do UK papers, of course, American papers as well, but it's pertinent we show you some of the Australian front pages, starting with the Australian. The headline reads, Massacre of Jews, at least 10 dead. I mean, the number now is 16. 10 dead, 16 injured, global shock at atrocity, hero disarms mass killer. The next one is the Herald. Bondi terror massacre. The headline reads, evil gunmen armed with explosives fire into crowded beach. Hero tackles shooter, saving countless lives. Slaughter of Jews killed in Holy Day attack. And for me, as a former newspaper man, this is the one to show you. It's the Daily Telegraph tomorrow in Australia, the Australian version. At least 11 dead in terror attack on Jews in Bondi. We've blurred it out there on your screen. Apologies if you're offended by this, but the headline reads, you bastards. Pretty apt, I think. My panel are back with me in DC, Joel Rubin and Victoria Churchill. Joel, you've just handed me this letter. This is a letter